like to begin the meeting. However, before we start the meeting this evening, I want to remind everyone that this meeting is being live streamed and will be archived. Also, friendly reminder to please turn off all cell phones. Approval of agenda. Motion that the agenda for the regular board meeting of July the 2nd, 2019 be approved. I'm going to ask that it be approved as amended, and the amendment is to move item C, presentations, to number 3A, just prior to director's report, and director's report becomes 3B. Moved by Trustee Morrison, seconded by Trustee Gibson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Report from the in-camera committee of the whole meeting of the board. There was no in-camera committee of the whole meeting to report to. Oh, sorry. I forgot preliminary declarations of pecuniary interest. Thank you. Old business. Previous minutes. Motion that the minutes of the regular board meeting held on June the 11th, 2019 be approved. Moved by Trustee Clement, seconded by Trustee Cosmerly. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Tenders and requests for proposals. I have two. First one, motion that the board award the contract for Queen Elizabeth Public School roof replacement and structural repairs, tender number 2019-06, to New Style Construction Company, 1988, Limited, for $1,087,000. Moved by Trustee Hunda, seconded by Trustee Morrison. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. The second tender is that the board award the contract for Churchill Public School partial roof replacement, tender number 2019-07, to Semple Gooder Northern Limited for $278,374. Moved by Trustee Clement, seconded by Trustee Stringer. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Reports and recommendations from board committees. First item is the 2019-2020 budget, and I will call on Superintendent Bassinet to move to the podium and respond to any questions that he's aware of, and we'll certainly welcome questions from around the table.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did receive a few additional questions regarding the 1920 budget. Therefore, I'll take a few moments to respond to those questions. I will project for ease of reference. So one of the questions received had to do with confirmation of timelines. So at the very end of the document, there is a reference to the timelines for various reporting. And you'll notice on this page that it says that the estimates for 2019-2020 is June 28, 2019. Just to advise the board that throughout the month of June, there is ongoing conversations and discussions between Karen Cosman, our manager of finance, and our financial officer at the ministry. and we provide regular updates to them as to where we are in our budget process, as well as different levels of information in terms of which board meetings and, of course, what's our projected balanced budget viewpoint. So essentially, even though this date is in June and is, of course, passed, we will be filing today, July 2nd, and the ministry is fully aware and have no issues. And in particular this year, there could have been actually extensions given the lateness of information provided by the ministry. So that will occur today, of course. Second question relates to the breakdown of expenses for next year's budget. So just need to find the right page. And it's on, sorry, keep going around. It's in regards to the admin and governance. So on page 20 of the document, we have admin and governance of $5.5 million as an expense. And just to provide a little bit of background as to what's included, of course, it includes all expenses related to Board of Trustees. It includes directors, superintendents. It includes most of the corporate departments, such as finance, HR, payroll, communications, and it includes a fairly large component of what is called a program leadership allocation. And that includes a variety of employees, including some system principals, as well as superintendents, as well as consultants. So that is the makeup of essentially that 5.5. The question was talking about the net expenses, because within EFIS there's a sub-calculation of what they call board and admin governance compliance. And essentially what that is, it sets out a limit. So the limit for us for 1920 per EFIS essentially was $5 million. And within that compliance, you can bring in additional revenues from other sources to bring you into compliance. So that is essentially what has happened, and that has been traditional in terms of all boards bring in additional dollars from various sources. And usually what that means is when you look at our revenue page, under kind of the middle of the page where we have our total operating allocation, all items below that are listed as other revenues, there are certain limitations as to what can be brought in to offset some of that compliance piece for admin and governance. Having said that, there's also some degree of flexibility on the part of boards as to what they put into the board admin and governance. So again, it's twofold. You can decide to come into compliance by not bringing in revenues, by changing the makeup of who is charged under this heading, or you can do as we've traditionally done, which is we have a certain core group of staff, employees, departments, and then we bring in other revenues, primarily such as interest revenue, to offset and bring that into compliance. So hopefully that answers the question that was asked. The second piece also related to admin and governance is the exec compensation plan that's posted on the board is our plan, and all the expenses related to that plan are reflected in our expenses of that $5.5 million. So we are all, it is all compliant in terms of being accounted for within our expenses. The second piece related to that was just clarification as why when someone looks up various compensation on the Ontario Public Sector Salary Disclosure website, it does not necessarily match salaries that you may see under, for example, an exec comp plan. And the reason for that is the report for the public sector is filed directly from essentially finance using T4 information. Therefore, all other payments over and above salary would be captured and included and reported. and essentially all boards must comply with that regulation as well. A few examples of what may skew the numbers in terms of salary would be things such as payout of either vacation days or lieu days, as well as in certain circumstances, if a board is offering early buyout packages, there could be forms of different severance payments, which would also be included in that, and therefore would inflate those numbers and would not reflect just salaries. Another question that was asked is whether or not, when we arrived at our accumulated surplus draw of $919,000, whether or not there were any other expense reduction scenarios that were considered in arriving at this number. Short answer is yes. Every year, it's our established practice when we begin to set out a budget is to review all our existing programs and services, as well as our various departments, and make assessments as to what will carry forward, and where we can, we do make a few adjustments. So there are a few FTE positions that were not filled moving into next year, and that was done by virtue of decision-making at the exec level, as well as the fact that when we look at our enrollment projection, at this time of year, we typically are conservative in those estimates. So there is a bit of expectation that the enrollment will come in stronger. And we do have that opportunity once that October enrollment is realized. When we file our revised budget, we can make adjustments, which could include reduction strategies if the need were there as well. So it's a second opportunity. So at this point in time, our established practice has been to look to providing a balanced budget within the definitions allowed through the ministry, and that essentially is where we are at this year as well into next year. The final question was just asking for a little bit of clarification on what is capital and where the proceeds of disposition reserve fits into that equation. So in terms of the revenue page, pretty well in the center of the page, you see two items, school renewal and school condition improvement. Essentially, those are capital dollars that are allocated as part of the grants moving into next year. And over and above those amounts, we have an existing reserve, which is called the proceeds of disposition reserve, which has been built up over the years through the sale, essentially, of the surplus properties. These dollars are available to the board, like school condition improvement dollars, to enhance our facilities in terms of capital projects. At this point in time, we're not projecting to use any of that as we speak this evening, although it is available, and there could be, in the future, specific projects that could be earmarked and tap into these proceeds of disposition reserve. That, Madam Chair, concludes the questions that were received this morning, and I'm happy to address any further questions if there are any.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Bazinet. I'm going to maybe take a moment now to put the motion on the floor, and then I will provide an opportunity for further questions. And I'm going to get that motion. That the Rainbow District School Board 2019-2020 budget be approved. Moved by Trustee Hunda, seconded by Trustee Cosmerly. Any further questions, discussion? Trustee Gibson.
Thank you, Chair Dua. This question is regarding questions I actually submitted last month or for the previous meeting. And Superintendent Bazinet had kindly provided a response at that meeting. He agreed that the information provided was fairly high level, but he declined to provide the further detail that I had requested. And he commented that it was set around the comfort level of the board as to how much information was provided. So I was just looking for an answer around that it may be possible that individual trustees have different comfort levels. So I was just wondering who's ultimately responsible for that decision. I asked for the information. I did forward the email to Mr. Blazeg as well, because I thought ultimately it might be his decision as to what information was given, because I would still like to see that further information, and the answer I got is that that's not the comfort level. So I'd just like a definitive answer to clarify whether I can have access to that further information or not.
I would like to respond to the best of my knowledge, and I welcome anyone else to respond as well. But actually, if your question involves a report that requires, according to your comfort level, requires a great deal of background information, if you wish that kind of a report, we request that you put it in the form of a motion, and all reports must be approved by that's what I think anyway is the answers, and the trustees decide whether they want staff to provide that kind of an in-depth report. Now, I certainly welcome anyone around the table. Just we'll make sure that if there's people around the table that would like to respond differently, but that's my understanding of, you know, you can ask a question, but it could involve 2 days of work, and I don't know. So anyway, that's my explanation for you, and you have a subsequent question?
Supplementary, if I could, Chair Dewar. Is there a motion then that we that describes the level of detail that we get, that's what we're currently acting on? If it would require a new motion to change it, the old motion, where would I find that?
No, sorry, I misspoke, or I didn't make myself clear. If a trustee wants a report, you make a motion, the trustee who wants the report makes up the motion so that it will address exactly what kind of a report you want, and the depth of the report, and so on and so forth. And you make it up and you bring it to the trustees, and it requires a seconder and it requires a majority vote.
So supplementary, if I may. So I'm not really looking for a report. What I'm looking for is a copy of the budget. I'm being asked to vote on the budget, a document. I'm being asked to approve it, and I'm just asking to see a copy of the budget that will be submitted to the ministry. That's the report, so to speak, that we're referring to. I'm not talking about any other separate report on the budget, but the budget. Is that not what we're voting to approve? So I'm just not sure how I can vote on something I haven't seen.
Okay, Superintendent Bazinet, is this the budget that we submit to the ministry?
No, it's not the document we submit. Essentially, the way the various departments and the finance department and all of us work is we collate information and we calculate and summarize for you, which is the document that we begin in November. Therefore, with all due respect to the process, I would certainly recommend that if there is a desire to change the document, because the document you see projected and what you have been given is the budget document at the board level. And it's evolved over time, and therefore it can change with time. However, typically, in terms of a process, it is something that begins in November of each year for the following not on the night of, quote, the actual vote, which is the third meeting that we've had regarding the budget information. So
Thank you.
maybe just to truly clarify, what we submit to the ministry is we file online EFIS. It's an online application that is completed and filed, and there are subsequent documents that the director must also sign that are sent in as well. So that is on the ministry side. The board level side for decision-making is the document you see before you.
Thank you very much. Trustee Cosmerly?
So just to clarify then, the information that we are seeing is the information that would be submitted in the EFIS document. Now it's probably a different format because it's in the electronic format, but it's the same information. The numbers are no different than what we are seeing, right?
The format is very different. The overall numbers are the same.
Trustee Gibson?
Thank you, Chair Dewar. Just one last question.
Yeah.
Regarding fiduciary duty. So my understanding is I do have a fiduciary duty as a trustee of oversight. So if something were hypothetically to be not compliant in that budget, and we've mentioned this before in terms of the government stepping in, the ministry stepping in, who is ultimately responsible? Would that be the finance department or the trustees of the board? Who would be responsible if there was something in there that wasn't correct?
I think collectively, we each share a responsibility. The information that you've been provided with is the information that's been collated by many different people in many different departments. And when you look at the process, essentially we prepare the expense side based on how we run departments and how we staff our schools, including classroom teachers and all teaching staff, and that accounts for the expense side. The revenue side is generated once we receive the technical paper and EFIS. And this is essentially a summary on this page of what the revenues are for this board. So essentially, collectively, we are all saying, to the best of our knowledge, we are compliant with ministry expectations, and the information put forward to you this evening, as in all previous years, is the best of our knowledge based on actual worksheets that all various departments have. So essentially, ultimately, you pass the budget. The decision makers are this table based on the information that you see before you this evening.
Thank you very much. And Trustee Morrison?
Just a very brief comment, Madam Chair. I'm very comfortable with this format, but I understand others who may not have gone through the budget process may not be, so I understand that. But the other way that this is supported is multiple times throughout the year. Not only are we audited multiple times at several levels, both internal auditor, our external auditor, KPMG, our internal auditors, and the ministry, but we also go through mid-year financial reports. We also go through financial statements in December. All of those things, again, validate both about the budget process and the reporting process that it comes to us at the board table. So for that reason, I will be supporting the budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I also kind of remind everybody that we do get other opportunities during the year. We have our financial statements that we can check at, and I understand that this is relatively new for at least 4 of our trustees. It's the first budget. When I first became a trustee, we had a binder that was at least 1.5 inches, and we spent all day Saturday, and we did go line by line by line. But it was a complete full day, and personally, I don't want to ever go back to that. So, and we set the tax, the mill rate. So, yeah, but however, If there are any further questions, if not, I will call the question, please. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you very much. The budget is carried. New business, and I'm glad you stayed up there, Superintendent Bazinet. I'm going to call on you to talk to us about the 2019-2020 in-year deficit elimination plan, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You do have a copy of this report in your package. Essentially, it is a new requirement that the ministry has established. Previously, as part of budget submission, whenever the board was filing a budget that exceeded the 1%, not only did it require ministry approval, the boards were obligated at that time to file a multi-year recovery plan, which typically was 3 years in length. In the past, whenever the board was filing a compliant budget, which is 1% or less, there was no need to file any further information. However, this year, they've introduced a new requirement, and they've called it an in-year deficit elimination plan. So therefore, because we are drawing from our reserves, or projecting to draw, we must file this additional piece of information, and essentially the director must sign essentially that there is a board motion approving this proposed plan. So essentially what this is saying is, based on the budget that we're filing, the estimates, if that were our actual financial year-end position come August 31st of 2020, how would we eliminate not only the 900,000, but they have a new way of calculating, so it's per this page, 1.1 million. How would we eliminate that in the upcoming 2 years? So that's the framework. So essentially what this elimination plan is saying is, if we were to end in August 31st, 2020, and actually see this draw of 919,000, based on the way this calculation is done by the ministry, what would be our plan for the next 2 years to eliminate it? And essentially, you can see that we have two components to our plan, and they're repeated in each of the years, in that we project that we could see a slight increase in the enrollment projection of AD, and we would be experiencing operating expenses reduction due to consolidation of schools. So that's where we project to be beginning in 2020, 2021. So you see that based on these projected increase in enrollment, which increases revenue, and decrease in expenses, we essentially would predict that we would have an estimated surplus August 31st, 2022 of 24,000. Therefore, we have, quote, successfully eliminated that deficit within the 2-year framework. And as stated, there's a recommendation that this be approved by the board.
Thank you very much. Put the motion on the floor that the 2019-2020 in-year deficit elimination plan be approved. Moved by Trustee Clement, seconded by Trustee Cosmerly. Trustee Cosmerly.
Just one question through you, Madam Chair, to Superintendent Bazinet. Is this government saying that surpluses don't belong to boards? I don't understand, surpluses are board money that are usually used to support whatever the board approves it to support within whatever the parameters are. Are they saying anything through their directive with this in-year deficit plan? Do they talk about surpluses suddenly not belonging to boards?
No, there's absolutely no indication that is as straightforward as that. I think you need to look at it from the ministry definition. And essentially what the ministry is saying is they provide us with grants. Anytime you supplement those grants from your reserves, they call that a deficit because you're bringing in money over and above the grants. So that's why they get into this discussion and calculation. And what they're trying to ensure is that boards are not having structural operating deficits year over year, but that if they do have a deficit, they have a plan that would recover it in a timely fashion. If you're under the 1%, essentially, it's a 2-year. If you're over, it's typically a 3-year.
Trustee Morrison?
If I could, through you, Madam Chair, to Dennis, I'd like to pick up on something that Trustee Crosmead said. I guess the other thing that really strikes me in this, Dennis, is that normally, like, this is a very unusual request. This is a new type of request to all boards to talk about coming up with interim plans to cover going to reserves for 1%, less than 1% of your budget is normally not questioned at all. So the fact that we are now being questioned, that's a brand new thing. And the other thing, and I just struck on the words that you used, you're talking about they're concerned about boards having structural deficits that are basically over the long term going to continue to put them in the hole and they have no way to recover. I'd just like to point out in the 20 years that I've been a trustee with Rainbow Board, we have never operated in a deficit. We've never been in takeover. We've never had the ministry come in and take over our books. We've never, as a result of both KPMG's audit or ministry audit, had an administrative review where they're coming in to saying you're not dealing with your money properly. Never in the 20 years that I've been a trustee.
Thank you very much. Trustee Gibson?
Thank you, Chair Dua. I'm looking at the plan here, and I do see 2 goals: to increase enrollment and decrease operating expense. Obviously, we can control our operating expenses and school consolidation. So, what I'm looking for is the how of increasing enrollment. That would be the actual plan. Is how do we plan to increase the enrollment? Because if that doesn't materialize, then we'd be right back where we started. So it's nice to hope that we increase enrollment, but what is the how and why of making that happen?
If you look at the projected enrollment that we're using for this year's budget, it is very conservative. There is significant probability, particularly at the elementary level, that we will see an increase in enrollment for October of this year, which would potentially make this whole plan a moot point, because we may end up in August of 2020 by not having the deficit as projected. So once again, what this plan does not do is take into consideration that there are other financial cycles that will occur. It's strictly saying, taking a snapshot of what you're filing today, if that were to materialize, what would be the plan? And part of the examples given by the ministry were, again, based on enrollment. And of course, we know that there's an enrollment risk, there always is. However, we're feeling confident that to say we'll pick up 10 students in the year 2020-21 over and above what we have projected at this point, we're fairly confident that can occur in light of also some new information with regards to new families moving in.
So supplementary, if I could. So just so I can understand this level of confidence, we're not so confident that we would want to put it into the budget, because that then may affect collective agreements, etc. if we say we're confident to get that amount of enrollment, but we're fairly confident, so that's why we're willing to have it sort of as the backup plan, but we just don't actually want to put it in the budget. Is that kind of what you're saying?
I'm saying that when we prepare the budget, we do use conservative estimates because they are linked to staffing. And if you overstaff, you have no ability to remove staffing come
Right.
September. However, the opposite is true.
Okay, so the plan is, so to speak, to be conservative with the budget and then hope to be surprised, or pleasantly surprised, but fairly confident you'll be surprised come actual enrollment time.
At the elementary panel, we have some confidence that enrollment will be higher than what we're projecting at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee St. Jean, and then Trustee Clement, I believe. No, Trustee St. Jean, and then Trustee Morrison. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So along those same lines, I was focused more on the school consolidation piece in the two estimates. Is that contingent upon the funding that we're hoping to receive based on the approvals from the last accommodation review?
Yes, in part it is.
Okay.
Trustee Morrison.
Trustee St. Jean just asked it. Thank you.
Trustee Gibson.
Thank you, Chair Dua. Just, if it is in part, what would be the other part? I'm just curious. Could you expand a little on that? Thank you.
Well, I'm not in position at this time because we are also preparing to bring forth a plan in August, an accommodation plan, and therefore we need to consider if we do not get our approvals to proceed between now and that time frame, what is our contingency plan? So we're currently in development of that process.
Thank you.
And thank you very much. Call the question. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Yes. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. That was unanimous, I believe. Requests for leave of absence, there are none. And now we have 3A. I will call on Director Blazik to make a presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Rainbow District School Board values student voice. And over the past school year, Hannah Golden brought this important perspective to the table in her role as student trustee. When Hannah began her term, she indicated that student voice is important because it allows students to share who they are and what they believe in with their peers, parents, teachers, and their school. Every student in every school has a voice that needs to be heard. This was perhaps most evident when Rainbow District School Board Student Senate hosted the Stand Up for Positivity Conference this spring. Students from all secondary schools participated in the full-day event, which took place in this very boardroom. It was a joy for me as Director of Education to watch students engage in a dynamic discussion about mental health and well-being. The dialogue was genuine, spontaneous, deep, and reflective. It demonstrated that students have compassion for their peers and want their schools to be places of learning, where students have a strong sense of belonging. This is one of many ways in which Hannah Golden and her peers on the Student Senate have made a difference on a system-wide level. She's also proud of the board-wide talent show and the Stand Up, Speak Out Leadership Conference. Hannah says, being able to work alongside such dedicated, passionate student leaders from all across the school board has been an unforgettable experience, and I thank them all for their hard work. Hannah is a prime example of how students can grow personally and academically when they get involved in their school and in their community. In grade 11, Hannah served as co-premier of the Student Parliament at Sudbury Secondary School. This past school year, in grade 12, she was Deputy Prime Minister. She has been a member of the Athletic Council, performing dance troupe, volleyball and badminton teams, senior reach for the top team, and has volunteered with the Onaping Falls Recreation Committee for many years. In her role as student trustee, Hannah Golden has also represented Rainbow District School Board at the provincial level as a member of the Ontario Student Trustees Association, known as OSTA. Hannah came to the table brimming with enthusiasm and gratitude for her new role, and that enthusiasm and gratitude never wavered. Hannah is returning to Sudbury Secondary School in the fall, and after that she plans to attend the University of Waterloo to study law and justice with a minor in criminology. She aspires to be a defense lawyer, which may have been fueled by her participation in this year's mock trial, the competition where Sudbury Secondary School captured the silver medal. We asked Hannah what advice she would give to students to ensure they got the most out of the secondary school education. Here's what she said. My biggest piece of advice would be take risks and enjoy your time in high school. Although 4 years may seem like a long amount of time, it goes by extremely fast. So make the most of your time there. Try out for the sports teams, audition for the musical, join student government. Don't let great opportunities pass just because you're afraid of them. The best part of my high school year or career was my extracurriculars, and my fondest memories are from them. Well said. Hannah, please come forward to accept a gift from the board chair, Doreen Durer, as a small token of our appreciation for your contribution.
Let me introduce you. Now, director's remarks. I'll call on Director Blazik.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a few items to speak to tonight, and I'm going to have a few people come forward to speak on some of the subjects, so it'll be a little longer than normal. On Thursday, June 20th, I was accompanied along with Superintendent Noble and Principal Potvin, where we went to Llewellyn Park Secondary School. We had the pleasure of attending and being part of platform guests at a Canadian citizenship ceremony. Over 150 citizens took their oath and officially donned their Canadian citizenship for the first time. It is truly one of the nicest events a person can attend. It makes all of us, or at least me, extremely proud to be a Canadian. The entire exercise, I would suggest to you, at least for myself, is very emotional. And I can't tell you how lucky we are to be Canadians. And that event certainly made me realize that. On Saturday, June 22nd, many RDSB employees and the general public had the pleasure of attending the Parent Involvement Committee sponsored the event called Empowering Parents to Empower Their Children. The keynote speaker was Dr. Adele LaFrance. Her message was quite valued, and it was very, very practical. Case in point, the one thing that she noted, one takeaway, I love it when you can walk away with something. She said, if nothing else, as adults, you need to show empathy for your children, especially when they're under duress. Key phrase she used, she said, repeat it 3 times. This is the practical part. I understand why you're upset, because, and then explain what the because is. Do it 3 different ways. And she said, in all likely, more often than not, that the child will have reduced their anxiety. So it's just a very practical walk away. So it was very, very pleasing to hear that. And of course, they had sessions afterwards where many parents had the opportunity to engage in very specific remedies in terms of working with children. A northern immigration pilot has been introduced, and Rainbow is assigning to the pilot. It has the potential to serve us extremely well in terms of student enrollment. I will now ask Superintendent Noble to explain in more detail.
I was biting my tongue earlier when you were asking questions about increases in future enrollment. Within the last month, 42 refugee families have settled in the Sudbury area. And we're trying to figure out, they have all enrolled in schools and continue to enroll in schools. But on top of that, 1 week ago, Northern Ontario Business reported that all 5 of Northern Ontario's major cities have been selected to participate in a 5-year pilot project designed to increase immigration to rural and northern communities. The Northern and Rural Immigration Pilot is a federal pilot that works to help participating communities gain access to a range of supports to help newcomers settle in as part of the local community. So those 5 cities in Northern Ontario are Thunder Bay, Sault Ste. Marie, Sudbury, Timmins, and North Bay. And they are among the 11 pilots that were awarded across Canada. The project's goal is to attract new people to these communities to fill labor gaps, which are growing as the Canadian population ages and the birth rates decline. It's designed to use immigration to help meet labor market needs, support regional economic development, combating issues such as out-migration of youth, aging populations, and labor market shortages. So specifically, this project will not be targeting specific sectors. It will depend on the local community and its employers. So it will look different in Sudbury than it will look in Sault Ste. Marie, than it will look in Timmins. It will be entirely based on the regional labor market. So this is not just a temporary foreign worker program. It's a permanent program to give permanent residency to skilled immigrants and their families. So specific to Sudbury, MP Paul Lefebvre is quoted as saying that he often hears from local businesses that they say they can't fill crucial job vacancies, not only in the mining sector, but also in the city's budding high-tech sector. And he shares that our businesses here in Sudbury are foregoing contracts due to the lack of qualified workers. So for each job under this pilot program, employers, so Sudbury employers must demonstrate that they have not been able to fill that job with local talent. So to roll out the program, the federal government will work with selected communities through the summer, ours will be one of them, with the goal of finding candidates for permanent residency as early as this fall of 2019. And the memorandum of understanding for the pilot is expected to be signed by the end of August. Communities will be responsible for candidate recruitment, so our employers will be recruiting candidates from around the world. And the endorsement for permanent residents and newcomers are expected to begin to arrive under this pilot as of January 2020. So by second semester next year. And although the pilot is for workers specifically, under this project they are able to bring their entire family. So community partners, of which we are one, the Rainbow District School Board, we will be responsible for the settlement services, including such things as housing and education. So the pilot program will be capped at around 3,000 workers in Ontario, or around 600 per community, but the number of immigrants could be as much as 3 times higher or more, as they will be bringing their families along. That's it.
Thank you, Superintendent Noble. So you can see there is hope on the horizon in terms of enrollment. So we look forward to not only the enrollment, but also if we think back to what President Bill Best said, about internationalization of our schools, that will certainly be a movement that we'll be accelerating in the near future. So thank you. The next item is this is really, really interesting. It's called Join the Compassion Revolution, brackets, or we're all doomed. This is an article written by Ann Kingston in July's Maclean magazine, which includes a reference to our very own Larchwood Public School. Kingston refers to a compelling activity, which all of you are aware of, led by kindergarten teacher Natalie Miller, that all of us can learn from, our very own kindness elves. I want all of you to look at the article, but more importantly, in a minute, I'm going to ask that you see for yourselves what it looks like from the lens of 4 and 5 years old. Before I ask Nicole to come up, and maybe you can come up and get set up, Nicole, I'm going to pass the Maclean's article. And if you'll just turn to the blue tab, and you'll see where it's marked. and you could read about Natalie Miller and the activity of which all of you, I think you're aware of, with regards to the kindness ninjas. So, at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Nicole, and Nicole's going to show us what it looks like from the lens of a 4- and 5-year-old.
Thank you, Director Blasick. Chair Dewar, trustees. When members of the media received the guide on how to be a kindness ninja from the kindergarten class at Larchwood Public School, they wanted to meet these compassionate 4- and 5-year-olds. And the kindness ninjas, as Director Blasick indicated, became the most popular news story of the school year. They even made their way into Maclean's magazine. We sent our very own Bailey Foy, who is working with us for the summer, to meet the kindness ninjas. It was a Monday morning, and the class had just settled into a nutrition break. One of the children spotted Bailey's video camera, told her about the television and radio announcers who had come in to visit the class, and said he wanted to be just like them. He picked up the battery pack and microphone and set off to interview his classmates. Here's what happened next.
There's a reason why we're wearing the red handbands, because we are the kindness ninjas. Kindness ninjas help animals, old seniors, and other people and animals. What have you done to show kindness? And it can't be today. On a weekend, it can't be today. What did we do? Tell me, Austin. We did kindness behind the wall. Yes. Okay, thank you. Calvin, tell me, what acts of kindness have you done to spread love? And it can't be today. You don't know? I already know. I made a rainbow card for the little Austin. Okay, thank you. Moving on. Avery, tell me, what acts of kindness have you done? And it can't be today, okay? Something on there. Just made heart crayons for the whole school. Okay. Thank you. Sam, what have you done? So, I made, on Mother's Day, I made my mom a card. And me, Daddy, and CJ went to get her pretty flowers. Oh, that's nice of you for Mother's Day. It was pink. Yeah. Is your mom's favorite color pink? She likes all the colors. Oh, okay. Sawyer, it's your turn to talk. What have you done? When my baby sister was crying, I gave her a big, huge hug. Aw, that's nice. Did you do anything else there that time? I gave my mom a hug. Okay, that's nice. Tell me, Shane, what acts of kindness have you done in the spare week? I just eat it. I just eat it. Have you done any? Yeah. I made call for Avery. Was that today? God, how am I getting your drag? You can't do it. Say, okay, that's fine. Caleb, tell me, what acts of kindness have you shown? It can't be today. So we're kind of eating socks. I already nothing on there, okay? And if you, on the weekends or here. We're kind of to the whole school by giving yellow. Oh, that's something that I didn't say. That's good. And we're kind of the whole school because only one thing you can say. So is that? And what else did we do? First, after we delivered Jello. What am I doing? We were making Jello. We were making Jello, and then what else? Joe, and then the cup. You put Joe in the cup? Keep going. And also we see the rat. And after we did that, after they froze, what else did we do? We took them out of the fridge. We took them out of the fridge, they were frozen, and then we delivered them to the whole school. Then we delivered them all to school. Thank you.
I pledge to myself on this very day to try to be kind in every way to every person, big or small. I will help them if they fall. When I love myself and others too, that is the best that I can do. For I'm a kindness ninja, that is true. My mission is to spread love to all of you.
So, through from the eyes and words of 4 and 5-year-olds, so something else. They also wanted to, as a token of their efforts, the kindergarten children from Larcher wanted all of you to wear their badge in order to keep the compassion movement alive. So what that means is they have a selection of created kindness badges, so they would like everybody to have one. So I have brought one for each of you, or they sent one to each of you, so please pass them around and take one. So they have a lot to teach us, and of course, if you read the article, which is just, it's quite amazing, and it just speaks about how the world at this point needs to turn its direction on a dime and focus on kindness. And so what a beautiful illustration. We need not look any further than our own Larchwood Public School and the 4 and 5-year-olds in terms of what they've brought to that particular movement. So just outstanding. I just wanted to report that, all of you went to graduations. For some of you, that's your first time, at least in your role as trustees. And so I want to thank all of the trustees and the senior admin for making themselves available to speak. Your efforts are key to getting out the message, the system messages. I was fortunate to attend many. I'm happy to say that this is one of the best years ever in terms of what I saw at graduations. Hopefully you saw the same thing. I'm so proud of our students. Not once did I see a phone or a device take away from the moment. And I was at 11 of them. Not once. It was just outstanding. So they were there for the moment. I don't know if I can attribute that to Kawhi Leonard, because he kept saying, live for the moment, right? And the kids did that this year, and it was just outstanding. So it was a superb job. Plus, they did an excellent job in terms of protocol and understanding. They were so well behaved, and they and so understanding of what we're trying to get in terms of making this a truly celebratory event. Just outstanding. So our staff did an incredible job with all the prep, and a congratulations has to go to our principals, the grad committees, and of course our students. So thank you so much for that. Now the final thing I wanted to share with you, and it's kind of hot off the press, and I can't get into details, but the ministry did finally allocate one of the PPFs, and that is remember the old EPOs, now called PPFs, the Priority and Partnership Funding Envelope. So we did. So it's now formally known as the EPO, now called a PPF, although we're embargoed in terms of the dollar value. Priority and Partnership Funding, okay, PPF. And I'm sure we'll all have to remember or remind ourselves of that name in September. But the math allocation has come through. I can't disclose the dollar value at this point. And I will also tell you we do have a new civics, or careers, curriculum. I can't tell you any specifics about that as well, but it will be an interesting crunch time because we were supposed to deliver that in September. So it's going to be interesting to see how that unfolds. But having said that, they are coming in, and we'll have to see how that affects us in terms of what our staffing allocations will be increased by, if at all, and also what PD measures we'll have to undertake in order to implement some of these programs. Those are some of the challenges when you receive memos on July 1st and July 2nd. So those are good news, but tough to implement, okay, because of the short notice. So that is my report for today. Trustee Chair Dewar.
Thank you very much. It'll be tough, but we'll do it. OPSBA delegate or alternate? Do I have a report, Trustee Clement?
There is no news at this time. Haven't been anywhere.
Okay. Did you have anything, Trustee Cosmery? No, okay. Student trustee, Hannah, are you going to get through this?
No.
Did you want to say a few words?
Yeah.
Okay.
I tried writing a speech the other night, then I got really sad, so I started crying. So then I'm just gonna kind of make it up and hope for the best. So this year really has gone by pretty fast. I really can't believe it's over. If you tell me in grade 9 I'd be sitting here, I wouldn't believe you for 2 reasons. One, I had no clue what my job even was. And second of all, I didn't even think I'd graduate high school, let alone be the student voice. And I mean, even in this year alone, I've gained so much confidence and just self-regulation and everything. I'm so thankful for this experience, and I'm getting sad. Oh man. Over this past year, we were able to accomplish some amazing things with the Student Senate. The board-wide talent show where students from all across the board got to show off amazing talents, and we got to have just an amazing day. The Stand Up for Positivity conference, where students are now spreading positivity in new ways throughout their school, and they will continue to do that. And as well as the Stand Up Speak Out conference, where they've gained leadership skills, and hopefully they will use those to join Student Senate. This year I went to Osta, and it was amazing. I've made memories that will last with me forever, and friends that I will have for the rest of my life. And the thing that sticks with me most this year is that I spoke at a conference in January, and a little 6th grader came up to me and gave me a big hug and said, "I want to be like you one day." And I just thought, why? Like, you know? And well, she said, "Well, you do this, 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 and this." And then I started crying, and it was really cute. So in about 6 years from now, your student trustee's covered. No need to fret. And at graduation and prom, everyone was asking, "Well, aren't you sad high school's over?" And I said, "No, I'm sad my student trustee term's over. I could care less about high school." Although I'm extremely sad my term's coming to an end, Colleen, who's coming in and taking my role, is outstanding, and she is just the most amazing person, and you guys are in good hands. So I'll just leave you with thank you all for the support this year, whether it be just sharing our Facebook posts for Student Senate, or actually attending them, or just supporting us in general. And thanks, Mom, for all the rides.
Yeah.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thanks, Mom. We appreciate your driving her here. You have influenced not only the 6-year-old, but the 66-year-olds. I won't say who those are. So, trustees' remarks. Trustee Cosmerly and Trustee Gibson and Trustee Hunda.
I just wanted to give some thanks out as well, now that this year is coming to an end. I wanted to thank the organizers, the volunteers, and the speakers at the PIC conference that Director Blasek talked about. That was an incredible, incredible day and a lot of work. So I'd like to give my thanks to them. I'd also like to thank the organizers and participants, especially, and the staff for a successful challenge meet. That was awesome. The kids were incredible. We had a wonderful day. The rain held off despite all of the predictions for crappy weather. So I wanted to give a shout out and a thanks to all of them for another 2 really successful events.
And thank you. Trustee Gibson.
Thank you, Chair Dua. I just wanted to echo what Director Blasek said about attending graduations. It was an honor and a pleasure to attend on behalf of Rainbow and bring greetings from the board. I just wanted to add one little thing, which is on some of those occasions it was my first time visiting the school as a trustee. So I just wanted to add a little reminder about school visits next year. I didn't know better, I'd say perhaps you were trying to avoid me, but I know better, and I look forward to those visits in the fall. Thank you.
Trustee Hunda.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a few things to say. Graduations, of course. I think primarily I want to say we made it. I think every year we're like little hamsters on the wheels where we're running in June. It is definitely the busiest time of year for trustees. Obviously, admin, even worse. But I think it's also, I know for me as a trustee and over the years, it is the time where I feel most valuable. I feel where our job has made a difference, because I think it's through the success of our students that we see the success of our board. I love graduations. Many of us go to many of them. And it this year has been no difference. Our stepping up ceremonies in some of our schools that go to grade 6, the adult ed, they're all different. They're all beautiful, and I just want to thank the staff for the success of our students. I also had the pleasure of going to quite a few of our track and field meets this year, and each of those I think that we sometimes forget that it takes quite a group of hardworking staff and volunteers to put these events off, and I find it so exciting every year to go back and see many retired staff that come and volunteer year after year after year to make these things successful. Bruce, who would be our oldest? Remind me. That gentleman that's been there for...
John Roberts would be...
Right. Like, how many years has it been for him?
Things track and field. 4 decades.
4 decades. Like, this man is there every year to make sure that this is run successfully. I want to add to Trustee Cosmerly's comments about the challenge meet, that if you ever have one event that you want to go to and make a difference in your life, that is the one. I want to tell everyone that every single one of our administrators was there that day, every single one of them. Judy Noble in a dress, Director Blazik in his suit, very good to see Superintendent Bourget in superintendent, Wachnek in their more casual attire for a change. Colleen there all day. It was a hot but beautiful day, and honestly, there is nothing quite like those smiles, those high fives, those hugs that you get that day. There's nothing. I encourage you all to, if you can try to make it next year, I encourage you to do that. And finally, for me, I just want to add my personal thank you to this young lady. I don't think that anyone needs to know how important I think the student voice is. The Student Senate is my heart. Every year we have wonderful students sitting in this seat, a student trustee seat. All of them remarkable and wonderful, but in all honesty, some of them touch your heart and you get closer just a little bit more. And this year I had the pleasure of it being this young lady. To watch her come in over the 2 years and grow so incredibly much in her student leadership has been a pleasure. And I was very, very, very honored to be able to have presented her with her diploma and one of the awards that she won this year at her graduation. And I just want to add my voice. You have left quite the impact in my life and in my heart. And I wish you all the best in the future.
Thank you very much. Trustee Morrison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll keep it brief. I too just want to add my voice. Hannah, thank you very much for your effective representation at the board table. It's meant a lot, so thank you. not only you're effective student trustee, but you're also a great person, and that comes across in everything you do and everything you say. Thanks, Hannah. The last thing I want to pick up is comments actually that other people have picked up on, including congratulating everybody and how wonderful moments of the grads. Every single one of them have wonderful moments. There's one in particular, it's a tradition I sort of started a couple of years ago, and I hope everybody doesn't mind. I'm going to do it again this year. I asked the valedictorian of Barrydown College whether she'd give me permission to take her valedictorian speech and again share it with the members of the board. And of course, she was very proud to do so. Now, this year's valedictorian at Barrydown College, there were 67 grads this year, and again, that's another 67 kids that would not have graduated, would not have obtained their entire secondary school diploma without that program at Barrydown. And many of them have very long and windy roads to get there. This year's valedictorian, and I don't know, I'm looking at Superintendent Noble as I'm saying this, had a little different message for the graduating class than some of the others. Some of the others that you've heard me read, their speech has been a lot about their journey and the windy road that it took to get there. Sarah Moore is this year's valedictorian, and her message was slightly different. So I'll just read it as she said it. Before I start my speech, I'd like to say what an honor it is to be representing the class of 2019. My name is Sarah Moore, and I am your valedictorian. When I received the call that I had been nominated, I was in shock, mostly because I registered at BDC, as they refer to it, in February 2018, after being suspended countless times from my former high school. Fast forward to 2019, and here I'm speaking in front of all of you. What an honor for you, for me, and surely a treat for you. I would like to express my appreciation to all my friends, families, teachers, Wikipedia, and whoever invented copy and paste. Thank you for helping me get to where I am today. My job here this evening is to reflect upon our high school years, predict our bright futures, and hopefully save all of the families some tears until the end of the ceremony. I should begin by saying I'm not going to feed you all the hallmark, mushy, gushy stuff like a typical speech. You know, like the typical valedictorian address that says, as I look out into the audience, I see future engineers, pioneers of technology, lawyers and surgeons, and she shook her head. No, it's cruel to make it all sound so easy. In reality, we're all going to be broke students and job hunters for the next couple of years, so we should get used to the idea. I'll call her a realist. Honestly, though, having high school come to an end is a little sad for me, mostly because now I have to pay for my own lunch instead of just walking to the foods room to see Natalie to grab some free snacks. More importantly, it brings us to the end of what has been for most of us 4, 5, or 6 years of high school. Throughout those years, we've created special bonds with the people we met, the teaching staff, and community members. You know, Barrydown College isn't your typical high school. It's not a school where you sit in class with 20 other students, listening to your teacher and wondering if you will ever use this stuff in the future. It's a place where learning is more real and where we can feel comfortable and accepted. Barrydown College is a school that gave us the freedom to learn at our own pace, to put us in the driver's seat of our own education, and gave us a great way to achieve our goals while still letting us live life the way we wanted or needed to. We all made a major decision to come back to high school, and Barrydown College was the place we chose. We have all worked extremely hard to get to this day, and our work will not go to waste. A minute ago, I made a joke about our future unemployment, but really, we are all now one step closer to our goals. As Edward Cox said, the fireworks begins today. Each diploma is a lighted match. Each one of you is a fuse. Today has shown us just how capable we all are of accomplishing goals if we commit ourselves to them. I hope along the way you were able to receive the tools you needed to succeed in any classroom, workplace, or wherever life may take you next. Take this accomplishment as an example of how anything is possible if we set our mind to it and move forward. After all the days of wondering if we'd ever make it to the end, my fellow graduates, we have done it. As Drake would say, we started from the bottom and now we're here. We graduated. Thank you and congratulations. And Hannah, I saw lots of you in these comments. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Trustee Clement.
Thank you, Chair. I should say a few words from my end of the nation here. That was my honor. I brought greetings from the board to Massey S. Geiger And we had a record graduation this year. We had 13, and I think we'll have more even for next year. And then we went to Espanola the day after, and I was joined by Superintendent Kathy over there, and we had, 2 full classes, I think they said. And we should have that again that next year. And they had a really nice theme there, Hollywood. And it was stars all along, lit up the big reel at the ceiling, and all the volunteers they said that they had there, they couldn't have done it without them, so a big clap to them. Then we went to high school the next day, and Superintendent Norm joined me there, and that was a long one.
He's demoted now.
That was 100, oh, sorry. Director Vlasic. And we had 120 kids, I think, graduating at the high school. And I think by the bursaries that were handed out, I think half of the kids or more got bursaries. Unbelievable amount of bursaries. And I jot down all the time where they're all going, and we're getting less and less kids going to university. I mean, I don't know what it is, an expense or what it is, but a lot more are going to college, which is nice to see also. So that was great. And just one comment too for Hannah. It was my pleasure to be on the board, on the Senate committee, and to see these kids grow. And I said that at the meeting, I think last time, watching Hannah and Sophie was another one, from these little kids that came on board and became young adults. It was wonderful to see. And that little girl, was it, gave you a big hug? Yeah. A mouse. She was a mouse. And she grew into a young lady. And that girl who gave that big hug, well, there was a reason for that, because they see the result. And we need that student voice really big on our board. We have to hear that voice. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful life.
Trustee Stringer?
Thank you. I'd like to echo some of those comments. First of all, Hannah, thank you for everything that you've done for this board, and best wishes and as you proceed on. I'm sure you'll be doing many exciting things. Maybe we'll hear about some of those. I also wanted to say that I really enjoyed the months of May and June. As a former educator, I knew that they were busy months in schools, but I didn't realize how much that would allow me to be involved as well. So between barbecues and powwows and track and field days at each of the schools and then island championships, it was a really exciting and busy time. Graduations last week were a lot of fun. Different position to be sitting in and speaking to the students about, and I really enjoyed it. So just wanted to share that little piece of Manitoulin. It's very, very precious time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all of the trustees. And in fact, as I start my chairperson's remarks, I would like to say thank you to each and every trustee that is sitting at this table. You made decisions. They were sometimes not easy. However, those grads are your reward. On behalf of the board, I would like to congratulate all of the graduates of Rainbow Schools. We wish our grade 8 students who are entering grade 9 continued success as they make the transition from elementary school to secondary school. We also extend best wishes to our grade 12 graduates who are moving ahead into the world of work, independent living, an apprenticeship, college, or university. Our staff has given them a wonderful foundation. May they continue to fulfill their aspirations. Most importantly, I would like to thank our staff for their efforts at supporting student success throughout the school year. Just think for a moment about the many and varied jobs that contribute to the success of our students, whether it be academics, socially, emotionally, or physically. Every success story has a team of devoted staff members behind it. The thought for the summer comes from George Bernard Shaw, who said, if you have an apple and I have an apple, and we exchange these apples, then you and I will still have one apple each. But if you have an idea and I have an idea, and we exchange these ideas, then each of us will have 2 ideas. I wish everyone a safe, restful, and rejuvenating summer, and I thank you very much. If you take a quick look at information and proposals, we have some minutes that are attached. And also, I wanted to especially point out the non-staff communication. When the new education minister was announced, I very quickly asked our communications officer, Nicole, to write a letter and send it immediately so that we would introduce ourselves to the new minister and indicate that we are very willing to work with this new minister. Future meetings, I want to especially point out the August 27th, 5 p.m. in Ernie Chekris in this boardroom. And now I'd like a motion that we adjourn, moved by Trustee Cosmerly, seconded by Trustee Stringer. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. I note that.